everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the first part of the Alice in Wonderland movie, and then next week we will be finishing up with the second part, which is the Through the Looking Glass portion. If you haven't watched the movie yet, it is the 1985 version, so please watch it before you get into it. Otherwise, you'll get spoilers, and I don't want anyone to get spoilers if you don't want them. Also, we're going to be taking a small break from streaming. I did kind of announce this on the Discord, but if you're not a part of the Discord yet, I am going to be taking a break through the month of August, just because I'm going to be moving. I'm very excited, but it's going to be a lot of work. So I'll be back after all that, and you can find the announcement of when I'm back on Twitter, or if you join the Rhapsodic Geeks Discord channel, which is on Twitch. Also, another Patreon exclusive episode is coming out, and it's going to be coming out on Friday the 6th of August, and that episode is going to be an Alice in Wonderland movie comparison, so we're comparing both the Tim Burton movies and the original Disney movie, and then the first Friday of September, we're going to be talking about Heartless by Marissa Meyer on Patreon. So if you haven't joined Patreon, there's a lot of exclusive episodes to catch up on, and there's a lot of great exclusive content coming out soon. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And plus, it helps support the pod. So if you wouldn't mind, helping out and joining and getting some great exclusive content, it'd be really, really appreciated. Also, our next book is going to be the Iliad. So if you want to read the Iliad, we will be chatting about that soon, and that'll be with Jade from About a Book podcast. So there's a lot of great stuff coming up, and I am looking forward to enjoying it with all of you. But without further ado, let's catch you all in the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Barely Bookish podcast. Today, we are covering Irwin Allen's Alice in Wonderland 1985, and I am once again joined by Leah.
Hello, everybody. I am so glad to be here, Rachel. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for joining me.
Sure. I'm excited that we get to talk about these movies now.
Yes, I have long awaited, and Leah is from the YA Book Chat, so if everyone loves these episodes, be sure to go check that her podcast out.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, these movies. Wow. I forget how colorful the 80s are sometimes until I watch movies like this where they're trying to make them extra whimsical by taking every bright pop of color physically possible and putting it in a movie.
Right? Seriously. Because starting with Alice's dress too.
Yes.
Because her dress is orange. It's not blue, which is how I always remember the specific version of the movie, which because in all the other movies, it's blue. Yeah. So I always remember watching this one growing up because it wasn't blue. So
yeah. It was weird though, because I'm used to that little bow in her hair being blue, I think she has a blue headband normally, and I'm used to that standing out, but because she's blonde, the orange didn't really stand out, and I was just it was one of those things that I noticed that I was oh, weird.
Yeah. I will say it's funny because I actually never thought about this until I was watching these movies again. Now, I watched these all the time growing up, and I've watched them actually a few months ago with my youngest, but I never thought about this until watching them this time through. Okay. I was looking at her hair and I was like, it's really perfect. It's a wig. It's a wig.
It had to be because it was unmovable, unshakable.
No, it was absolutely perfect. Yeah. Stuck in place. Because I kept on, at first I thought, no, it can't be. But then if you look at her her bangs, that's
Mhm.
what gives it away, because they
Mm.
never move ever. Because the rest of her hair moves, but the bangs don't ever budge.
Oh, that's
That's how
so
you know.
funny.
Hmm.
So going through part one, the first thing I noticed is that the sister is actually a lot older in the movie. Like, because they never gave her an age in the book, but in the movie, she's like a teenager, it looked like. So I was like, yeah, no
Yeah.
wonder the sister didn't want to hang out with Alice because like this is a little adult. And her sister's probably annoying the living daylights out of her.
Yeah, agreed. She's definitely a lot older in the movie than I had pictured her to be in my
Mhm.
head. But actually, if you think about it, the Disney animated one, she looks a little bit older too. She even
Mhm.
looks older than a teenager
Yeah, I had
in the
always thought she was in her teens because in
yeah,
that one, the Tim Burton one, those are the only two I've seen, but both of those they age her up. She doesn't look like she's 7. So
right.
I didn't realize until we read the book that she's supposed to be like 7.5.
Yeah. Well, in the Tim Burton one, she's not 7.5. She is older. She's a
Yeah.
teenager, and Alice is a teenager in those ones. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's hard to tell in the Disney one how old she's supposed to
Hmm.
be. She definitely reads more like a 10 or 11-year-old in that one.
Yeah. I think I would remember thinking she was probably like 13,
Mm-hmm.
like on that
Yeah.
cusp of like preteen age.
Yes.
Um, and then my next note is Dinah trying to escape when she picks her up is the funniest thing. Like,
It is funny.
because they just basically got this house cat and they're like, oh, it'll behave, and then but they don't factor in the fact that cats like to run from you. Like,
Yes,
they
they
want
do.
cuddles only when they want them.
Yes, exactly. Point in case my cat actually did that to me today. I picked her up. I was like, I want a kitty snuggle. She didn't snuggle back like she normally does. Then she jumped out of my arms, right? She goes in my bedroom. I went in my room. She literally like ran for me and hid under my bed. I was like, what the heck, cat? Whatever, it's fine. Yeah.
My dog is very much the same way, except like instead of doing anything, if she doesn't want your attention, she just kind of leaves and disappears.
There you go.
And I'm like, okay, all right, see you later.
That's one way to handle it.
Yeah. The next thing I noticed was that the sister was right there with the rabbit showing up. And I was like, so don't you think that she would have said something when she ran off in the woods that she was awake? Because she just sprints off.
Yeah. Well, okay, so her sister's totally not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
For one thing, she's totally absorbed in herself. But yeah, Alice doesn't even care. She just like sees it and behind her sister in the back and is like, I'm just going to go. Doesn't even say anything, just
Yeah.
runs right off. Like, great older sister there. You
Mm-hmm.
have super protective.
I'm going to have a lot to say about these couple of moments when we get to the end of both parts
Mm-hmm.
because the lining up of the sleep dream does not really make sense.
I gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So we'll come back to that.
Yeah, because I know where you're going with that.
Yeah. So next thing is these thunderclaps of when they're trying to go into Wonderland.
I
I'm like, it
know.
now feels like she's having a nightmare.
Yeah, because it makes it like super creepy. It's funny because as I was watching it, I was like, ooh, I didn't remember about that. The lightning and the thunder as she's in the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
And then I thought, does that make me weird? Because it's kind of creepy in a way. But I also was like, I kind of really like this.
Yeah. It made me kind of think about this whole dreamscape and I was like, is she having a nightmare? Like, is this whole dream a nightmare? Like a kid nightmare? Or is she just actually casually dreaming?
Based off of the rest of it, I would say casually dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it just started off a little bit rough.
Yeah, because part 2 is, I think, more of a nightmare. But like this beginning part, there's a
Agreed.
couple times where I'm like, what's going on here?
Not sure.
Yeah. So now she somehow locked herself in the room with all of the doors.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like wandering upon it, she just locks herself in there. And then in the movie, she locks
the small tiny door herself instead of the
Right.
mystical deity locking it for her.
Which kind of makes, well, okay. It does make sense, but it doesn't at the same time. Why do you lock it again?
Yeah.
I feel like either way, the book or the movie doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I know that Lewis Carroll is not logical by any sense of the
Mm-hmm.
stretch of the imagination, but I just sit there and I think, if it were me, I would have unlocked the door, left the door open,
Mm-hmm.
probably either still had the key in my hand or put it in my pocket. And then I could have had it when I drank the stuff to make me smaller in the door, but the door would be open. But, that's not what happened. So
See,
whatever.
here's what my thing is. I know I have no memory. I have the
Mm,
goldfish have better memory than me.
me too.
So if I need to remember something, it is in my hand and I will not release it until its task is done.
Hmm.
Like I won't put anything down. I like put it in my hand, clutch it to my chest, and then I remember I have to do something.
I'm the same way because I feel like Dory from Finding Nemo
Yes.
most days. Just
Mood.
no, no memory.
I feel that 100%.
Mhm.
So then the next thing I noticed is the shrinking and growing. The
Yeah.
fact is that obviously in the 80s they did not have the level of CGI that we did. So I'm looking at this and I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are different sets. They had to have
Yep.
multiple sets depending on what size she was.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Because there wasn't the CGI in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it would
Green
have been totally
screen was
different.
like not that great.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know. I was just watching that part and I was like, wow. Like they did a good, there was a couple of times where I was like, things didn't quite line up and I was like, huh. But I was like, you know what? I can't say anything. I could not recreate two exact replicas in different
Right.
sizing.
And it was the 80s, so it's forgivable. It's fine.
It's fine. It's whatever.
That's right.
But I just thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So then she, cries. And instead of it filling up the room, she slips into a small pond out the side.
Yes.
And the ducks and the birds and the rat are things of nightmares.
Oh, the life size people, the people in the bird costumes.
Yeah.
I am going to say this because, all right, I'm going to probably make some casting comments as we go through this because I will have to say, these two movies, I absolutely loved the casting. Okay.
Yeah.
So the mouse who's in this scene is Sherman Hemsley, who is Mr. Jefferson in the Jeffersons.
What?
Yeah. He's the mouse. And Shelley Winters is the dodo bird. And she was like really big at that time too. And these movies just have some of the best actors in them. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's Mr. Jefferson. He's the mouse.
See, I am really bad with actors and actresses' names. So I'm glad that you're on top of it because I have no idea who anyone is at all.
Let me just tell you, imdb.com is my best friend. I actually I have the app on my phone because I am constantly like, we'll be watching a movie. Like my kids will have something like an animated one on. I'm like, I know that voice and I have to look it up. Or we'll be I watch a lot of British television. And the more British TV you watch, the more it's the same actors you see.
Oh, I know.
But I'm always like, wait, which show are they in? And I always have to look stuff up. So I have the app on my phone. So when I was watching this, I brought up IMDb and pulled it up because I was like, I got to just double check this. Although in the beginning, in the opening credits, they do have everybody listed too, which is fun. But yeah, I looked it up again though. But yeah. Sherman Hemsley.
I wish they made IMDb specifically for people like me because I can never remember any actor's name. So instead of like having to go to each of their biographies, I wish it would just say the biggest role they've had that like someone like a Gen Z would know. So like,
Gotcha.
I don't want you to say like, try to think of a good one. I don't want you to say Channing Tatum. I want you to say Magic Mike,
Gotcha.
like things like that.
Well, that's why like half the time I don't look it up by actor. Half the time I looked up by whatever movie or TV show we're watching.
Yeah.
So and that's how I figure it out.
Yeah, I had to
But
do it by movie or TV show character they play. And then when that comes up, then I'm like clicking all
yeah.
the biographies to figure out what other movies they're in that I could possibly know them from.
Yep. Exactly. But yeah, those really lifelike the birds. The birds were a bit freaky.
Oh my gosh. It felt like 80s personas, you know? Like
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
I will say, when you told me it was a musical, I was a little nervous, but I think it was good.
It was. And
Mhm.
I had totally forgotten about that part. And then when they started singing, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. But part of the reason it's good too is because again of the actors who they have in it. So that helps as well. But yeah, it wasn't too much. It wasn't like a song every other minute or something, There were
Yeah.
a few songs, but not a lot. It wasn't overwhelming. And they went along with the storyline really well. So I felt like it worked a lot. It worked really well.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they changed some of the poetry into being songs. I think that worked out a lot better too.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason they decided to make parts of it a musical.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the director was probably like, what the heck do I do with all these stinking poems? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, ooh, let's make them a song so much better, especially when we get to the second one with the walrus and the carpenter.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this movie felt to me, because I haven't watched a whole lot of 80s movies. Well, I have, but I've watched only like real life one. I haven't watched like 80s fantasy, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yep.
So it felt to me kind of like a stage production.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I can see how it does have that feel to it, the way that it was
Mhm.
filmed. It's fun.
Yeah, and then the real people being dressed up in outfits, like I viewed it more as a stage production just because of the budget. Not the budget, the lack of CGI, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
So then the next thing I notice is that Alice runs away from all of the animals in the little lake, and somehow she's immediately dried off. And her hair is perfect again, and she like flattens it out and stuff.
Yes.
And then the next thing is when she runs into the rabbit, he's like, Marianne, what are you doing? Go get my stuff. And she's like, okay, fine. And she runs over to the house and she's like, my name's not Marianne. The funny thing to me is that they were not consistent with the sizing of how large Alice was in that house.
Mm-hmm.
And like dramatically so. Like it was dramatically inaccurate, but I thought it was kind of funny.
It was because she she looked so much smaller when they have the shots of her inside the house and then they show the outside of the house and her arms out of it and whatever, and she looks huge. And like even when she puts her foot up the chimney to kick poor Bill up the chimney, it's like it hardly looks like her foot goes up the chimney at all.
Yeah.
But Bill goes shooting out of that thing. But again, 1980s, you're kind of limited on what you can do. So
yeah, I can't judge it too harshly, but I just thought it was kind of funny.
It was funny. I agree.
So the next thing is when she finally shrinks down because they throw rocks and then she eats one of them, and because they turn into a little cake, she shrinks down and she's running away from the rabbit. They tell her to stop running while they're still throwing stones at her.
Right? Because that's gonna work.
Yeah. I was like, what do you mean stop running? Like, stop throwing stones then. It's so simple.
Exactly.
And then my next note is I kind of feel bad for all these actors and actresses who have to wear these costumes.
Yeah. Yes, I thought the same thing. I was like, they had to have been so hot in those things and so sweaty because under the lights you get really hot.
And they have like
Clean 'em.
the face makeup on and stuff.
Yeah, you know how long that stuff takes to put on?
Oh,
That takes
yeah.
like hours.
Yeah. So then she runs into the
Mhm.
caterpillar, and my dad said that this is again because I'm so bad with actors.
Mm.
Like I was like, he's
Mhm.
kind of like I kind of know who he is, but I couldn't remember.
Yes. I if you weren't going to mention it, I was going to mention
Yeah.
it. Go ahead.
No, I don't remember who he is again. My dad.
Oh, you don't remember?
I
Okay.
knew that he was important, but I was like, oh, I forgot until I wrote my note.
That was Mr. Sammy Davis Jr., who was a singer and an actor and a dancer and like performer extraordinaire. That man was amazing.
Yeah,
He was, I mean, oh my gosh.
He's in
He
some
did
big
so
movie
much stuff.
I don't remember what it was.
Oh gosh, he's done like a ton of movies. And again, he was a singer too. I'm looking on IMDb right now. There's so much. Here we go. Let me go down to actor. Oh yeah, he was on an episode of The Cosby Show. I forgot about that.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah, well. Oh, what's funny is he was also on an episode of The Jeffersons.
What?
Dude, he was on General Hospital. That's hilarious. Let's see. He did a bunch of like different TV shows, but he did a lot of musicals too. Like the TV spots that he did were more like guest spots and stuff, or playing as himself. As a guest spot, but he, was mostly known for his singing and dancing that he did.
Yeah, I thought he was in a movie or something that I knew, but I'm not sure.
It's very possible.
Yeah, but he looked familiar, so I was like, "Oh, that guy looks familiar." My dad's like, "Well, that's so and so." But I'm
Sammy
so
Davis
bad.
Jr.
Yeah, I'm so bad with names that they, as soon as they're said, I'm like, "Okay, I'll remember that," and then they're immediately gone, and I'm like, "No." Like they have to be repeated to me like 1,000 times for me to remember the names of actors.
It's all right.
So then the first time she tries to recite a poem, it's with the caterpillar. But this is the first inconsistency I noticed, is because Alice says, "Oh, I've been trying to recite poems, but they always keep coming out wrong." And she hasn't said a poem yet.
Right. Well, I'm wondering if maybe in that instance, it was more like, I try to do this all the time, whenever. I feel like that's kind of how they made it seem for this one. Because she hadn't recited anything yet.
Yeah. Well, there's like multiple times this happens where they kept it very close to the original plot, but didn't keep in other things. And like when they eliminated it, they didn't change the wording. So like this is just the first thing I noticed, where I was like, oh,
Yeah, you're right. But it's not the worst one though. No, at least it's not too bad. So
it's just the first one I noticed, so I had to write it down. So then, she starts to recite poetry with this caterpillar, which then means they move to a singing number, and they have this outfit change, and he's no longer a caterpillar.
Yes.
I was like, what?
He is, hold on. They called it Father William. He's old Father William from the poem. That's who he's supposed to be. And that's why she changes too.
That makes sense. I was like, this is a weird outfit change situation.
Well, the reason is because Sammy Davis Jr. can't dance. He can't tap dance in that caterpillar outfit either. And if Sammy Davis Jr. is going to be in a movie and it's a musical, he has to dance and sing. That's how it was. That's what the man did. So that's why.
Funny thing is, I was like trying to figure out, I was like, where's the rest of his body? And I was like, oh, that lower half of his body is the mushroom. Like I had to think about that costume. I was like, oh, weird.
Yeah, he was probably like standing in the mushroom. Yeah.
How long do you think he had to stand in that costume? Because he can't sit in it. That mushroom's too round.
A really long time.
I know. I'd ask them to put like a little chair in the mushroom so I can.
Well, You know what? I wonder if the mushroom was only like, I'm actually looking at it right now.
Mhm.
I wonder if the mushroom was like 3/4. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if he could step out of the back, like maybe he just stepped
Oh,
forward into it. You know what I mean?
yeah, that makes sense.
Because we don't ever see the back of it.
True, true. And
Even
they don't,
still,
yeah, they
it's just
don't
a
use the
caterpillar.
mushroom for the eating either.
Right.
So, just
Because
fine.
it's
I
that
don't think they
piece.
wanted to do that CGI situation over and over and over again.
Gosh, no, and I don't blame them. Especially like I wouldn't want to do that scene either with the bird. And that's an easy one to cut out. You
Mhm.
know, if you need to cut something out, we don't need that piece with the bird calling her a snake and everything.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
It doesn't add anything. It doesn't matter.
Mm-mm. Exactly.
So then she goes over to the Duchess's house. And the way the Duchess handles the baby, like I knew it was abusive in the book, but like it is
Mhm.
so extra. Like she's just throwing these rags around that are supposed to be a baby and like smacking it and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh.
It's really bad. The visual of it in the movie, you're like,
Yeah.
yikes. Oh my
I know. I
gosh.
was like, okay.
Yeah, that's really bad.
So that happens. And then, the baby was like a normal looking baby though. And then it turns into a pig. And she's like, it would have
Yeah.
became an ugly adult if it grew up. And I was like, yikes, Alice. It's just a baby.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
So outside of the Duchess house, she runs into the Cheshire Cat and she somehow knows what the Cheshire Cat is now without meeting it at the Duchess's house.
Yeah. Cheshire Cat, by the way, is actor Telly Savalas, who he was a boatload of stuff. Like he was Kojak. He was in
Mm.
Kojak.
Wow.
He did a ton of stuff in the 80s. He was really big. Like he was on The Love Boat. He was in one of the Muppet movies. He was in the first one, the Muppet movie, the first one. But he was really well known for the TV series that he did. But he was a really big actor then in the 70s and 80s. So
yeah, they
that was like
packed this movie with so many actors.
Yeah, I mean, the cast on this show is ridiculous.
But I will say the Cheshire Cat, the first time it shows up, looks like an absolute serial killer.
Oh my gosh, he is creepy.
Yeah, I was like,
He really is. He really is. It's just weird.
Yeah, and then he like very threateningly tells her that there's absolutely no way for her to get home, and she's like,
He does have one of my favorite lines though. And this is, in the book where she's like, well, I don't want to be surrounded by mad people. And he's like, well, we're all mad here. I don't know why, but that's just always been one of my favorite Alice in Wonderland lines. And he says it.
There's some very good ones.
Mm-hmm.
So then she goes to the Mad Hatter and the March Hare. And I thought there was only one extra chair, but there's like 15 chairs at this table.
Yeah, there are a lot. So it's a really big table.
Yeah, and the eyebrow work the Mad Hatter does is very good.
That man is fantastic. He is so good as the Mad Hatter. The March Hare is played by Roddy McDowall, who was another like huge actor during that time too. He did a lot of actually he was wait a minute. Because I just looked at they just had a picture of him come up. He was in Batman. I think he was in Batman. I think he was the Joker.
What?
Wait.
Like the original really bad Batman with the like what is it, 60s Batman?
Yeah, hold on. I'm going backwards here. Wait. When did that come out? Okay. Yeah, holy cow. This man's got a lot of stuff on his list here. Okay.
Like I need to know if it's Batman and Robin, that one, or
let's see. Oh, maybe that's why I recognize his face. He was in this Haley Mills movie called That Darn Cat. Did you see that? Okay. Well, here it is. Okay. So he was in Batman, the original Batman in 1966, but he was not the Joker. Sorry. He played a character named the Bookworm, but he was in more than one episode. See, I knew he
have
was,
not seen that one.
yeah, I knew he was somebody in Batman. I looked at his face.
I will say my movie knowledge is a little subpar, like more subpar than it used to be. So,
Well, let me just say, I am, 40 years old. And so the movies from the 80s and 90s, I'm pretty good with. But it just happens to be that I've also watched a lot of these older movies, as well as the original Batman. So, he was also in Bedknobs and Broomsticks.
that was my favorite movie as a kid. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. My grandparents, every time they had it on VCR, every time I'd go and see them, because we lived in Florida, every time I'd go and see them, I would rewind the VCR. I was the only one that watched it. And my cousin has the book and she's sending it to me because at some point we're covering that on the podcast. It's happening.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was in that.
Wow.
And that original one.
Wow.
So there you go.
My next favorite thing is the fact that they couldn't get her to memorize these long, intricate poems, and they had her sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
Yes, which was hilarious. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. I'm like, well, it works. It's something.
Yeah, I thought it was very funny. And then they like do renditions of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and it was very, very good.
Well, what's funny about that too is that that's what Disney does in the animated version. They do the exact same thing. They use
really?
that.
I guess it's just been so long since I've seen that. I can't wait to revisit that now that I've actually seen it. Because why would they do that? That's funny.
I don't know, but they did. Well, because the mouse, I don't like. This is one thing I remember from the Disney animated. Because the mouse is like half asleep and he's like, only he seems kind of drunk too.
Yeah.
He's like, he can't say it right. And he says, twinkle, twinkle, little bat. He says bat. How, like he says the words all wrong. I don't know.
I think it's very funny. So the next thing I noticed, and the only note I wrote about it is, how did they get that deer on the set? Like, it looked like a little Key West new fawn situation. Like, this was like a deer that couldn't be more than like 2 days old. And they somehow kidnapped this baby deer and got it on set.
Somebody, I mean, maybe like from an animal preserve or something. I mean, there are places like so in Charleston, because I live in South Carolina, and I'm close to Charleston. So in Charleston, there's one of the plantations has like kind of like a petting. It's not really a petting farm. Anyway, they have animals and they have deer. Like these deer just stay in there in this like pen area that they have. So I don't know where they got the deer from. I don't know how, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Because I love deer and they're not comfortable around people.
Well, actually, it depends. I think if you're not threatening, they are. Because at the plantation in Charleston, so they do have this spot where they have animals, and some are in cages, but a lot of them just roam around freely, including the deer. They will come right up to you and you can pet them and touch the things.
Oh, wow.
And when I was little, we would go camping. And one place that we went camping, there were always deer that would come like into our campsite. I mean, we would be outside in the tent and it would be like, I mean, like super close to us. So I think it just depends.
Yeah, I think it's probably because I'm from Michigan and Michigan has a lot of hunting grounds. It's usually
they're probably a little
hunting.
scared.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for that because even like the suburban deer know to stay away from people. But
yeah,
I think
it just depends.
I think we just have too much of a hunting population probably in Michigan.
Probably.
The deer like spread rumors and they're like, yeah, don't go around anybody because that's how Charlie lost. Then we get to the scene of them being at the Queen of Hearts grounds. And I just couldn't help but notice that in the book, they messed up one rose plant. All of the rose plants were different colors.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
I saw
wow, they
that.
really messed up, I guess.
Yep. Those cards had a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way you're gonna finish. Like, she's definitely gonna notice.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then I love the outfit design of the Red Queen. They made her look super extra.
Yes. I love her dress. It's super fun. Actually, I love all the costumes in this, because even like the animals, even though they seem a little bit creepy, everything is still super detailed. And so they're really great. But I loved the Queen of Hearts costume too, because it wasn't literal. Like the Disney animated, it's literal. Like it's got the hearts all over it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But this one is more subtle in that aspect.
Mhm.
But I love the color and the design, and it's great. Her
Yeah,
crown.
every royal had like subtle designs to it, and I really like that. And then when they go to play croquet, the flamingos just chilling.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And they also, I guess they just couldn't get hedgehogs or something.
Yes, because they
these
had the guinea pigs.
Well, I will say most hedgehogs, until they are trained to be handled by people and they get used to it, they do not like being around people. And I'm guessing that that's probably difficult for actors and actresses to deal with if they're not familiar with hedgehogs, because you have to pick them up a very, very specific way. So guinea pigs is understanding change.
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Plus, here's the other thing. In the 80s, people probably were not having hedgehogs as pets like some people do now. Like I know two people who have had a hedgehog as a pet, and I'm like, where do you even
Yeah.
buy a hedgehog to have as a pet? You know, but in the 80s that really wasn't happening.
True.
So,
Guinea pigs are probably a very understanding
yeah.
substitute. And plus, that little roller guinea pig they have, because they
I know.
can't animate it, was so funny that I was like, it made it worth it to me.
Yes, it was super cute.
It looked like a guinea pig Roomba to me. And then, the queen tells her to go find the mocktail so she can learn the story.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes upon this goat, and then she comes upon a
Yeah.
chimp. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. They were just random. Like I'm not sure what the purpose of was of.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the chimp, I have no clue.
Mhm.
The goat, though, could have been a subtle nod to what happens to the second one, in the second movie.
Maybe. I just was like,
But I don't know.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, the chimp was totally random.
Yeah. And then they suggested to the mock turtle that the mock turtle should sing a this is like a tongue twister. Wow. The mock turtle should sing a sea shanty. And I was like really hoping and praying that that was going to happen, but it didn't. We just got a normal musical number. Still good, but not a sea shanty.
Do you know why that mock turtle could sing so well? Because that mock turtle was none other than Ringo Starr.
Are you serious?
Yeah. The mock turtle is played by Ringo Starr. I'd like to know how they floated that one by him. You know what I mean? Like, now this movie has a really great cast, but I can understand Sammy Davis Jr. totally agreeing to this, and like Carol Chan. Well, she's in the second movie, but these other actors. But then you're like, who are we going to get to play the mock turtle? Ooh, Ringo Starr would be great. How do you pitch that to Ringo Starr?
Do you think it's one of those things where they're like, hey, Ringo, listen, this is going to be just the weirdest production. We will have an open bar. You're going to be in a turtle costume. Would you sing a sea shanty? He's like, I won't sing a sea shanty. And they're like, fine, just another normal musical number, but we're going to make a joke about the sea shanty. And he's like, fine, I'll do it. Whatever. How much are you going to pay me? $1 million. Okay, yeah, sure, fine, I'll do it. Sounds good.
Although, that's actually, I suppose getting Ringo Starr to be the mock turtle in this was probably not I'm failing at what I'm trying to say here.
Do you think he just had like a free
don't know.
afternoon and they're like, would you want to come in for this? And he's like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever, we'll do it. Why not?
I don't know. Who knows? I mean, his band was like, they were pretty big at that point. So who knows? Maybe he was like, it'll be fun.
Yeah. He's like, fine, it'll be like a day off.
But yeah, Ringo Starr, super fun. Although, actually, you know what? He liked doing kid stuff. Now that I think about this, because he was the voice of, he did a voice in Thomas the Tank Engine. They animated, or not, I say animated, but it was more like,
Are you serious?
Claymation-ish kind of. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, he does a voice in Thomas the Tank Engine. So he must have probably just really liked doing kid stuff too.
Yeah, some of those people famous people like to give back and stuff. So
yeah,
it might be one of those things.
Yeah.
So then we get to the jury scene, and the fact that Bill was not in the jury kind of upset me a little bit, to be honest. It would have been so easy.
I know that would have been fun, but yeah, what are you gonna do? It was all birds in the jury instead.
Yeah. So then Alice grows very tall, and all that fun stuff happens. She runs away, but when it seems like she, quote, wakes up, it looks like she was knocked unconscious running through the woods.
Yes.
And that her sister was just gone now.
Right.
And I was like, wow, did your sister just not care that you were knocked unconscious through via tripping or something?
Right. Just going to leave her there.
Yeah.
Just leaving Alice. Or even if Alice had fallen asleep on the grass where they were outside, her sister is nowhere to be found still. So she just left her laying out there by herself.
Yeah. I know. I was like, wild. Yeah. But then it turns out they immediately go into through the looking glass. And when she wakes up, she didn't, immediately she goes through the looking glass, and when she wakes up, she didn't actually crawl through it. She's just kind of like trapped there. And then the Jabberwocky poem is there, but it's not backwards this time. And then the Jabberwocky shows up.
Yes. So this is something that they did that was obviously a lot different than in the book, because they took the Jabberwocky and made him present throughout the second movie, through the looking glass.
Yeah.
But I liked what they did with it, because it was this it was teaching her, and in a way teaching the kids watching the movie how to overcome their fears,
Yeah.
Because that's what the Jabberwocky became. He became representative of all of her fears that she had. And everyone tells her, well, you have to learn how to overcome your fear in order to be able to move on and do this. So I like that. It's very 1980s. Okay. My kids recently started showing them a bunch of shows from the 80s. And I was showing them He-Man. Okay.
Yes.
We get to the end of He-Man, and there was this little lesson, and I was like, oh, I totally forgot about that. But that's what they did in the 80s. They put all these little lessons for kids at the end of the TV shows, the end of He-Man. There's little lessons at the end of G.I. Joe, all of these things at the end of She-Ra, Princess of Power. So that was having the Jabberwocky be throughout the whole thing, and having it be this thing of you need to be able to overcome your fears was a very 1980s thing to do.
Yeah, but we will talk more about the Jabberwocky in the next episode. All right. Well, that's all we're talking about on this episode. We will be covering the second part after the to be continued flip disc or disc flip in the next episode. So, Leah, where can all the people of the internet find you?
Well, all the people of the internet can find YA Book Chat anywhere that they get their podcasts. It's available on all streaming services for podcasts. And the best place to follow me would be on Instagram. I am most active there. And everything is just at YA Book Chat.
Yeah, and check out Leah's podcast because it is very good. And there
It
is a
is
very
fun.
good episode about a ballad of songbirds and snakes that if we
That's
haven't
right.
dropped long enough. But yeah, we will catch you in the next episode.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. If you didn't hear it in the intro, we will be having the next Patreon exclusive coming out on Friday, the August 6th, and it'll be the Alice in Wonderland movie comparisons. We're going to be doing the Tim Burton movies as well as the 50s Disney movie. So if you want to check that out, go subscribe over on Patreon. It's patreon.com/barelybookish. And there's a lot of great content there already for you and your listening ears. But we don't really have a whole lot going on right now. There's just, Patreon. And if you want to follow me on any social medias, I'm on everything at Barely Bookish. But yeah, hopefully we'll have some fun updates once I move. I'm hoping to stream more on Twitch, so you can come check me out there. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening. Our logo is designed by my little sibling Sarah. Our theme song was by Raphael Crux on freepd.com, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!